Welcome to the deep dive. You know how sometimes you just stumble into a corner of the internet and everyone's talking about something really intensely,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
and you just want anyone, to cut through all the noise and give you the straight facts?
Exactly. Just tell me what's actually going on.
Well, that's kind of where we are today. We got a heads up from a listener, that's you, about this really intense online discussion happening. It's all swirling around the legal commentary on the Justin Baldoni allegations.
Right.
And what we've looked at, these raw observations from that online space, it's fascinating.
A bit bewildering sometimes, too, like peering into this whole ecosystem of opinions.
It really is. It gives you a snapshot of how these things play out online.
So our mission today, basically, is to unpack the concerns people are raising in these discussions. Concerns about bias and the commentary, trying to figure out what might be driving it.
And why finding a truly objective take on this whole case online feels, well, like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. Exactly. It's a crucial thing to explore, isn't it? I mean,
Sure.
we're just saturated with online content these days.
Totally. And being able to tell what's reliable, what's unbiased, it's getting harder, but it's so important.
Yeah, and these online viewpoints, they really give us an interesting lens, to see the dynamics when legal stuff hits social media and gets picked up by commentators.
Mm-hmm.
One comment that really jumped out at me, and I bet it did for you too, listener, was just this simple question. Is anyone finding any neutral LawTubers?
Ah, yeah. That cuts right to the heart of it.
It's just so direct, isn't it?
Yeah.
It perfectly captures that frustration when you're trying to get a handle on complex legal things online.
You're just looking for a clear breakdown, maybe something to listen to while you're, I don't know, doing the dishes.
Right, but instead it feels like you've just walked straight into this super partisan fight.
Yeah, everyone's already picked their team.
It really makes you wonder, what is behind this apparent lack of neutrality?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And looking at these online discussions, a few key factors seem to pop up again and again.
Okay, like what?
Well, one big one seems to be just the way online engagement works. Strong opinions, especially negative ones, they just tend to get more interaction.
Ah, right. More clicks, more shares, more comments. The outrage machine.
Pretty much. It's almost like there's this built-in incentive to take a really strong stance, maybe even an extreme one.
It's like the online version of if it bleeds, it leads, but for legal commentary. The feeling in these discussions seems to be that negativity towards one side and really strong support for the other. That's the stuff that gets traction.
That's what people are saying, yeah. Like online rubbernecking, but focused on legal filings and arguments.
Which, you have to imagine, creates a really tough environment for creators who might actually want to be balanced.
Oh, absolutely. It's a major challenge. People in the forum pointed out examples where commentators tried to just present the facts or maybe explain a standard legal thing.
Like a motion to dismiss.
Exactly, like a motion to dismiss, which, yeah, just for everyone listening, that's basically asking the court to throw out the case early, often because the claims aren't legally strong enough to begin with.
Pretty standard legal procedure, right?
Totally standard. But even discussing that neutrally, according to these comments, could get a creator absolutely slammed by their audience.
Wow, so it's like the audience has already decided who's right and wrong, and they expect the commentator to just validate that.
That seems to be the dynamic. And if you deviate, even just to explain a basic legal point objectively, well, some comments said creators get torn to shreds.
That sounds incredibly discouraging. Why would anyone bother trying to be fair then?
It really shows the pressure they can be under, doesn't it? Trying to stay neutral when things are so emotionally charged, it must feel like walking a tightrope.
Yeah, and if you upset a big chunk of your audience.
Well, that can have real consequences for their channel, their online presence. Losing followers, getting buried in hate comments. It's tough.
Which actually brings us to a really serious point that came up in these discussions. The personal risks. It's not just about losing followers.
No, it goes way beyond that, unfortunately.
Someone mentioned needing very thick skin just to share opinions in the forum itself, not even being a major commentator.
The heat can be intense, even for regular participants.
And then there were mentions of doxing, people having their private information put online,
Yeah.
and even threats directed at commentators and just regular people in the discussion.
Yeah, that's chilling. It's a stark reminder of how intense and frankly ugly things can get in these online spaces.
It really is. It highlights the very real human cost,
Yeah.
when you participate in these discussions about sensitive stuff.
Absolutely. And the anonymity online, well, sometimes it just seems to embolden people to say and do things they maybe wouldn't otherwise. Exposing personal info that can seriously impact someone's safety, their well-being.
So, okay, you've got this pressure to pick a side for views, and then these actual risks if you try to stay neutral. It makes you really start thinking about the motivations of the people creating this content, right? These Law Talk creators or LawTubers.
Naturally, what's driving them?
A theme that kept coming up in the discussion was, well, ambition. The desire to build a platform, grow an audience, establish a brand online.
That makes sense in the creator economy.
And there was talk comparing them to more established figures in this online legal space, like Annalee D. Baker was mentioned. And this idea that maybe some aspire to create a similar kind of revenue stream.
Which is a totally understandable goal these days, building a career online.
But as these discussions suggest, that drive for a bigger audience, for financial success, it might sometimes, maybe unintentionally, influence the type of content they make.
Right. The temptation could be there to give the audience what seems to keep them engaged, even if that means leaning into a bias, catering to the crowd, so to speak.
This whole situation has people talking about potential solutions, too. Ideas for how to maybe address some of this bias and misinformation.
Oh, like what kind of things?
Well, one suggestion was disclaimers, like for any online legal content, similar to what you might see in other professions.
Okay, what kind of disclaimers?
Things like stating clearly where they're licensed to practice law and maybe what their specific area of expertise actually is.
Ah, transparency. That seems pretty straightforward, actually. Just basic context for the viewer.
Yeah, it feels like it could help manage expectations, right?
Definitely. Because as this online legal commentary thing grows, the lack of standardized credentials or ethical rules, it does make you worry about accountability, about bad info spreading.
The comparison people made was to other regulated fields where you have to disclose your qualifications.
It makes a lot of sense in this context. Providing that background information seems like a reasonable step.
And the discussions also brought up needing guardrails, was the term used. Guardrails against commentators just sort of changing their opinions on a dime or misstating the law just to fit what the audience wants to hear at that moment.
Protecting the integrity of the analysis itself.
Right. The idea that legal analysis should really be based on, the actual law and the facts, not just what's trending or popular.
That gets to the core principles, doesn't it? Commentary should ideally be grounded in legal precedent, factual accuracy, not swayed by online buzz or pleasing a crowd.
And the concern being raised is that the way social media works might sometimes push creators away from those principles.
It's easy to see how that could happen.
And you can really see how all this perceived bias just eats away at trust. For someone like you, listener, trying to follow the case online.
It makes it really hard to know what to believe.
One person in the discussion talked about feeling suspicious even when a commentator praises the other side's legal work.
Right, you start second-guessing the motive.
Exactly. Is that genuine respect for a good legal point? Or is it just like a calculated move to look neutral while still subtly pushing an agenda?
Especially, as some pointed out, if those commentators are also featuring guests or promoting people seen as part of a specific sort of gossip network within that online space.
Yeah, the connections matter.
That skepticism is totally understandable. When you feel like commentators might be putting audience approval or their own growth ahead of objective analysis, how can you take anything at face value?
It creates this climate of distrust, definitely, where even positive comments get scrutinized for hidden meanings.
And the intensity of the reactions people face online? Some of the stories shared were quite stark.
Yeah, people mentioned getting scary messages. Even if they weren't big names, just participating could attract that.
That's really unsettling.
And the fact that some folks are apparently taking proactive steps, like preparing in case they get doxxed, having their personal info leaked, that shows the level of anxiety, the potential real-world danger involved.
It really does. It's gone far beyond just online arguments.
Plus, there was talk of coordinated negging attacks, organized efforts to flood someone with negativity, possibly even using bots.
Wow, so it might not even be organic audience reaction sometimes.
That's the suggestion, which adds another layer of, manipulation, I guess.
These accounts really paint a worrying picture, don't they, about how easily online talk can just spiral into harassment and intimidation.
Totally. The ease of targeting people, the potential for these coordinated campaigns, it's a huge challenge for having any kind of healthy online conversation about law.
Definitely.
And then there's that other big elephant in the room, or maybe the question mark hovering over it all. The actual credentials and expertise of some of these online legal commentators.
Ah, yes, the who are these people really
Right.
question.
Someone made the observation that, you know, experienced lawyers who are actively practicing, they might not necessarily be the ones pivoting to become full-time content creators.
That's a fair point. It takes a lot of time and effort to build a successful practice.
So it makes you wonder about the background of some folks who are doing the bulk of the online analysis. The concern expressed was that maybe some are using their law degree mainly for the authority it lends.
Hmm. Without necessarily having deep practical experience or specific expertise in the relevant area of law they're commenting on.
Right. And as one person put it pretty bluntly, the fact that many commentators don't clearly state their specific legal specialty is, quote, suspect.
That's such a critical point for listeners, for anyone consuming this content. A law degree gives you a foundation, for sure.
But like any field.
Exactly. Like any profession, real expertise often comes from years of actually doing the work, focusing on a particular area.
So critical thinking is key.
Absolutely. Viewers really should try to evaluate the claims, look into the commentator's background if possible, and just be mindful if they're truly qualified for that deep dive on that specific legal topic.
Interestingly, though, amidst all the frustration about bias, some people in that online forum did say they found more neutral analysis,
Yeah.
just within their own discussions there.
Oh, really? Like peer-to-peer analysis?
Yeah, and also mentioning platforms like Threads sometimes having more balanced takes. But there was definitely a sense of disappointment that even some of the bigger, more established online commentators seemed biased to them.
That suggests maybe smaller, more niche communities have a different dynamic. Less pressure to go viral, perhaps?
Could be. And the disappointment with the established names.
Hmm.
It shows people really do want that higher standard of unbiased analysis from those with a big platform. They expect better.
They hold them to a higher standard, yeah.
And speaking of prominent figures, there was this curious observation about EDB, she was referred to, a well-known name in online legal commentary.
Okay.
Apparently, she seems to be deliberately avoiding this specific case altogether.
Oh, any speculation why?
Well, the discussion threw out possibilities. Maybe potential conflicts of interest. Or perhaps just a strategic decision to steer clear of what's seen as a particularly toxic online environment surrounding this case.
That's intriguing. A commentator choosing not to cover something can be as telling as choosing to cover it sometimes. Conflicts are always a big deal in law, and avoiding online toxicity is understandable.
Definitely. And then on a slightly different angle, it was noted that some more mainstream outlets like Law and Crime Network,
Mm-hmm.
and even someone like Nancy Grace, surprisingly to some,
Mm-hmm.
they were perceived by people in the discussion as maybe showing a more pro-victim stance in their coverage of this situation.
That's interesting. It shows bias isn't always predictable, is it? Different outlets, different commentators, they all bring their own perspectives, maybe shaped by their editorial lines or who they think their audience is.
It's a good reminder to stay critical no matter the source, really, mainstream or independent.
Always.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive,
Wow.
wow, it's really clear that finding genuinely unbiased online legal commentary, especially for a case that stirs up so much emotion and online chatter, it's a huge challenge.
It really is a hurdle for anyone just trying to understand what's going on.
And the reasons behind this bias, or at least the perception of it, they're complex, aren't they? It's
Mhm.
everything from how online platforms work, rewarding engagement above all else.
To the very real pressures and even risks that the creators themselves face if they don't pick a side or if they say something unpopular.
And at the end of the day, all of this just makes it much harder for you, the listener, to get that clear, objective picture you were looking for in the first place.
Absolutely. That interplay between audience demands, the creator's goals, the questions about who's really an expert. It all feeds into this really tricky information landscape. It just hammers home the need really to be discerning, when you're navigating legal talk online.
Definitely. So here's something to maybe chew on after listening today. Given everything we've talked about, the engagement algorithms, the pressures, the trust issues, how do you as an individual actually navigate this? How do you sift through the noise in this often turbulent world of online legal commentary to form your own informed opinions?
That's the big challenge.
And maybe a related question. What responsibility, if any, do the platforms themselves have here? Should they be doing more to encourage balanced, transparent discussions? Or are they just destined to amplify whatever generates the most heat, regardless of whether it's objective or even accurate?
Big questions with no easy answers.
Definitely something to think about as you keep exploring these kinds of topics online. Viral YouTube title, hypothetical. Law Talk Secrets Revealed. The shocking bias in online legal commentary. Viral YouTube description. Hypothetical. Viral YouTube description. Hypothetical. Why is everyone online taking sides in the Justin Baldoni case? We dive deep into a hidden online discussion exposing the shady truth behind the bias you're seeing from LawTubers and other legal commentators. From the desperate chase for views and dodging online hate mobs to questionable credentials and potential hidden agendas, we uncover the forces shaping the narratives around high-profile legal battles. Are you being misled? Find out in this eye-opening deep dive into the murky world of online legal analysis. Hashtag Justin Baldoni, hashtag LawTube, hashtag bias, hashtag legal analysis, hashtag true crime, hashtag exposed.